Well, we are delighted this morning to have Rick Osborne. I think I first met Rick. He might not remember this, but I think it was about 3 years ago. He was speaking at Valley View Alliance on one of the occasions when he came to speak there. He's very much supported by the Valley View Alliance group of people. And I heard him share his testimony, and I was very much impacted by it at the time. And God has just done a tremendous work of grace in his life over the years. And I'm not going to steal his thunder at all this morning. But I asked him, I said to him this morning, so what is your main ministry? And he kind of looked at me with a puzzled expression. He gave me a card that said Truth for Teens. So I said, this is the main thing that you're working with? He said, well, not really. And he said, so I said, so it's a variety of things. He said, yes. And because of what God has done in his life over the years, he finds that, as I'm sure you're going to hear, that God is using him in a variety of ways to bless people in various walks of life. So without further ado, I just want to welcome Rick. Come and share your heart with us, Rick. It's so good to have you. Thank you for being here.
Hi. Some guys have heard my talk a few times, but they're supporters of mine. You know what? By 19 years of age, I was declared, I had a Canada-wide warrant on. In Canada, a Canada-wide warrant is the most dangerous status. Right? How did that happen? How did a church kid, by 19 years of age, become one of Canada's most wanted men? And when I say that, at 21 years of age, I went to the penitentiary. I was sentenced to 31 years for robbery times 3, weapons times 4, assault, police escape, custody, and possession of narcotics under gangsterism. It's not the nicest guy around. And one of the last guys to go, the old Don Jail, Kingston Penitentiary, and go below in the 70s. Me and Tony Special and Anthony Genovese were the last 3 to go that way, you know. And so you know, like that, when you do that at 21, you're gone. You're gone. That's not survivable. Average life expectancy for full-on gang member, and that was a full patch, is 11 to 12 years. Right? You kill yourself, somebody kills you for it. But so here's my story, because God's grace obviously was involved in this. I'm standing here in front of you, and that's it. Is God real? I'm standing here in front of you. When you hear my story, I'll stand with that one, right? So grew up as a good kid, Christian home. But the reason I do this, that doesn't mean anything to anybody. You know, if somebody says to me, I grew up in a Christian home, okay, what was it like? Right? Because that's not a definition. Right? In other words, my mother was an adult child of an alcoholic. She hadn't healed. My dad had to work all the time. He was never home. You know, you grow up how you grow up, right? I'm the second oldest boy, so I wasn't getting a lot of attention. In grade 5 and 6 in St. Catharines, I started getting bullied. And really it was, as boys started exerting themselves as boys, I had 2 little sisters. My job was to protect my sisters. When boys started, like grade 5 and 6, boys started touching girls inappropriately. I commented on it. I got beat up for it, right? And then I got beat up grades 7, grade 8. So Prince Philip and Niagara Falls, that middle school, I knew every little corner where you could get through a fence. I knew how to, you know, these boys were one size bigger, 1 year older. You know, I'll be 60 this year. I cannot tell you my friends' names back then. I can tell you their first and last names of the bullies and go show you their houses. Right? The point is, I didn't have any friends. Bullying and going quiet, so I thought if you cried, if your dad found out you cried, you weren't a man. And so I'd ride my bike around and wait until my tears were gone and go home. Bad place to sit. And so anyway, I started high school from a bad spot. Low self-esteem. My ears were too big, my nose was too big, my hair was too short, my clothes were uncool. You know what I mean? I'm starting high school like that. But the bullies are going to Stamford Green, not A.N. Meyer. So it'll work, right? I'm about 165, 170 pounds, getting bigger. You know, I'll get on the wrestling team, I'll get on the football team. As I'm walking to school, the first day of school, I saw the coolest guy I ever seen in my life. Davy Jones from the Monkees. If I say that, the kids have no idea, but long hair, Fu Manchu mustache, a very handsome guy, 21 years old, bell-bottoms, platform shoes, paisley shirt with an Aru collar with gold buttons. Like, I totally remember what he was wearing, and it was just the epitome of cool. And I was visual. Young men are visual. That's why porn is such a problem. We're all visual, but him I just looked at visually. And so I walked up to him. He was working on a sports car. I walked past him and I said, "Cool car." And he goes, "You like cars?" And I said, "I love cars." And Billy, after his actual first name, I couldn't wait to see him on the way to school, on the way home, tell him about my day. He was my friend. I just wanted to be him, right? First week of October, the week before I turned 15, I'm walking home from school. Billy's got his sports car running at the side of the road, top down, beautiful day, 3:30 in the afternoon. And he says, "Rick, do you want to go for a ride?" He would have had to shoot me. You know what I mean? I'm a 14-year-old boy, right? And it's a convertible. He's the guy if somebody would have told me that Billy was a junkie, I would have thought he collected junk. I had no idea, right? Just totally. If I would have tried to buy a bag of weed, I would have got a bag of oregano. Right? I was that fresh. I thought if I went for a ride with him, the worst thing that could happen to me is I'd be yelled at by my mom when I got home for being late. If he takes me up too long. I did not realize that I was not supposed to survive the day. Billy was going to kill me. Billy liked to watch virgins get high. It's how he relives his initial high. That's Billy's thing. That's BS, as soon as I say it, right? But it's deeper than that. I went for a ride with this guy thinking, I just want to be him. He's my friend. I'm so cool. We were into Main and Ferry in Niagara Falls. We pull in a little alleyway there. Guys come out from the Maple Leaf, walk over, shows off his car. I'm standing with him. I think it's cool. We go up the back stairs there. They're still hanging there. And there was a little apartment. And I went in that apartment, and then there was a scary man. Kind of guy you walked in. Not handsome and good-looking like Billy, craggy tattoos, mid-20s. I thought, I'll sit over here by the door. My friend Billy will take me out of here. Out comes syringes, out comes baggies, out comes spoon. They proceeded to mix a combination of purple pipe plate speed, biker speed, and China white heroin, Vietnam heroin. It's called a speedball, the most dangerous combination of drugs you can do, bar none. I thought, this has nothing to do with me, had everything to do with me. Standing here right now, I can still visualize the pinprick in my arm and the blood swirling like a ribbon into the syringe. Gone. How cool. Woke up hours later. I was a heroin addict for almost 18 years. I've never seen anybody go as long as I went up and survived. The methamphetamine. I was young and strong. Right? When I came to, shredded newspapers and magazines and cigarette packs and books where I was. I used to joke, because you got to joke about stuff. Well, first time I got high, I woke up in a hamster cage. Everybody would laugh, right? Meanwhile, it's called punding. The repetitive ripping and tearing of anything your hands can get a hold of in a chronic, severe methamphetamine overdose. It's what happened to me, right? When I came to, high as a kite with no string. So effing high. I don't even know how to say it except like that. I couldn't even talk for a day. All I did, I chewed the whole inside of my mouth and ground the front of my teeth just from the methamphetamine, and then waves of projectile vomiting from the heroin. I was going out and everything. I got out of there. I went to the street. Let me tell you, the strongest thing I felt was shame. I'd done something. Right? No experiential knowledge of how to get out of this, right? I didn't want my dad to find me like that. The most important person in my life, my dad, right? Did not want him. So I went, and on Bridge Street, you can see the bridge to Niagara Falls, New York. There was a little hostel, and you could go there for $1. So this kid who was making doing hobbies in brigades at Grace Church earlier in the week is now high on drugs where he can stop, and he needs to get off the street. So I go with $1 and I stay and I lay down and I try to pull myself together and I get sexually assaulted. Bang. First night on the street. I got a guy with his mouth on my penis, I got to fight him, and get him off and run back outside. So here I'm outside. So I hide. All parts of Niagara Falls, Victoria Park in behind. The next night, I go out the end of Lundy's Lane. So some working girls got me and kept me safe. I went to their little motel, and that night I smoked some hash, they made me smoke hash so I would cool down, and then they went and got heroin and gave me a cap of heroin, and I split a cap of heroin with them. That quickly, I was a heroin addict. That's it. My dad found me the next day, brought me home, I cried, I said I was sorry. 2 days later, back to the street. Done. Traumatized, drugs. Two things. Once they're done, you're off and running, right? And so now I'm being an opportunistic criminal. Right? Just out there, I worked at Marineland, I have a bit of money off to the side, and just doing that, walk past a car, you see a wallet, it's unlocked, you take it, just that kind of thing. And the problem is, not high, not high, not high, too high. It's the problem with narcotics. Guys are overdosing, we don't know, it's not like it's coming from a factory, it's different doses, all this is, guys are dying, we don't have methadone, we don't have anything. Do you know what drug treatment was back then? Electroshock therapy, right? So we didn't have anything, and I'm on the street. The problem with heroin is this, going out. You can't control it as a young guy. So I kept going across the border. The first time I went across the border, I stole my brother's girlfriend's car, drove to Florida, 15, sold it for a motorcycle. When I came back up, on America, so that, tell my brother to stay away from me. But, didn't have that girlfriend anymore. And then, so this time now at 16, I got across the border. I'm not going to survive the winter. So I get down to Florida, 16, I know how to fight, I'm on the street now, it's most 16-year-olds think they're 50, right? Like, they know everything. And so I'm down there working the beach, Miami to Hollandale, Hollywood. All the crap comes in at night and goes back out again. Anybody who's at the ocean. And so beach crew, you're not allowed to sleep on the beach. You have to wear a lanyard, and to work the beach. But beach crew, $5 an hour, they pay you at the end of the night. We rake all the crap up into these big, now tractors do it, but when some guys are smoking dope, drunk, partying, it's 1971, remember, Miami Democratic Conventions are on, and we're all working the beach. So I'm living in a trailer park in Hollandale, and I'm good. I'm good. I'm 16, I'm controlling myself, I'm paying my way. I'm a heroin addict, but there's a lot of heroin. Mexico's weak. There's a lot of tar down there, and it's a type of heroin. So anyway, I'm working like that. We had this cool guy who worked there. He was an old guy. He must have been 36. 38, when you're 16, he had a 66 GTO convertible with a kicking 8-track sound system. Anyway, when I go to, but what was cool about him was he smoked weed. It was unusual for an old guy to smoke weed, right? So we thought he was the coolest guy, and we'd all pile in and get rides, in his GTO, and the music blaring, and during breaks we'd sit with our mouths open while he'd tell us war stories about being in the penitentiary. One day he comes to me, he goes, "Hey Ozzy, I got some really good weed. You want to get high? We'll get high. We were starting at Miami. Tonight, we'll get high at Flamingo Park." Flamingo Park's a little island off Miami, just one causeway. It's got one round saucer-shaped pool in the middle of it, with a little thing where you can change. There's nothing else there, right? And so we go sit at the water's edge, and we start smoking dope, and I survive his attack. So here, I break the window with my head, and I get into the water. And, he leaves thinking I'm drowned or bled to death. And I remember coming out and going, I'm not making it to the causeway. I'm bleeding way too badly. He sectioned my liver with the first jab. And so I just laid on the ground, and all of a sudden I saw fire trucks coming across. There was one guy cleaning the pool who heard a noise and came up. Okay, God always puts the one guy there, right? Even though I'm not a Christianer at the time, right? Opposite of a Christian. But, so I'm in intensive care at Miami Hospital. And, I have to tell this because, I just healed, and eventually detectives came in, suits, briefcases. What happened to you? I was hitchhiking, a guy picked me up and attacked me. Don't snitch, don't rat. Being on the street either. You don't talk to cops, right? And, but cops know who's out there, right? And they pulled out mug shots with the crimes underneath, This guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, bam, there he is. The guy that we thought was so cool that smoked weed with a 66 GTO, tell us war stories, rapist, killer of a young man, Jacksonville State Prison, life sentence. He's out on parole after doing 15 years. Nope. Don't talk to cops. Right? My dad sent $4,000 to those cops in 1971 for them to, $4,000 is a salary in 1971 for them to bring me to the border. at Buffalo. So he paid those guys huge to bring me to the border. They were going to put me in Pensacola. I was off to Vietnam, right? And so my dad bring me to the border, dropped me to the border. I arrived at the border, bare feet, baggy pants. Baggy pants were cool, but then they cut your clothes off, right? So the nurses gave me baggy pants and a hospital smock. Still draining from tubes on this side. I lost about 40 pounds. My dad looked at me, just started crying, right? Never heard my dad cry before. I got in the car with him. We went over to the Canadian side because he had to show my Canadian ID, and I said, "Pull over," and I got out and walked over. You need to remember that. First of all, I saved my dad's life that day, and everybody else in my family. Everybody else in my family. That's my mom, my sisters, my brother. Every one of them would have died in the war we had with the rock machine. Later on, they would have all been murdered, right? I have friends, all family murdered, mom, everything, right? We lost 126 guys during that war. So me walking from my dad, even though at the time it was my own pain inside, I couldn't look at my dad. Shame. So I hitchhiked with bare feet to Niagara Falls, went to Huron Street, grabbed a bundle of heroin, went upstairs to the washroom, got high. I just want to forget Florida, right? When I got high, I looked down, there was a razor on the counter, I picked it up and I cut my right bicep, 5 inches across my bicep. I wrapped it with a tensor bandage. You ever think I'm a tough guy? I cut myself like that every 20 to 30 days for 18 years. It's how I dealt with my emotional pain. I would cut myself. If I didn't cut here, I'd cut here. I could not live with myself. I had to put pain into my body. By the way, this is cutting. So, same thing. So here's the biggest thing though now. So now I'm a cutter, right? I don't know why, it works. It lets me live another few days, right? But I now fear men. Pee in my pants, shake like a dog, shit in razor blades, fear men. Sorry about this one. I can't go near men. Heroin's not sold by girls. So I got, and actually I did. I went to a girl who was an old lady of a guy, I think crossbreeds, a bike gang there, small bike gang, and she sold me a bundle. And then her old man got mad at her for it. So I could never score again like that, right? What's he doing going into a girl? And I remember looking at this heroin dealer. I robbed him. Basically, what I did was just, if a man's on the street and he has heroin, he's in big trouble. Because if he's not tougher than I am, I'm taking it, right? Eventually, I robbed a biker. If you want to have a good life, don't rob bikers, right? You know, especially 1%ers, eh? And so here I am, I made a mistake. Eh? Sober second thought, although I never had a sober second thought at that time, was, and back then, they killed us by throwing us in the Welland Canal, right? That's how they killed us. They killed my cousin that way. He got thrown in the Welland Canal, right? So I was told I was going in the Welland Canal, so I was doing pretty good hiding, right? I was staying coming out at 3 in the morning and going in at 5, and all of a sudden I'm in a headlock being dragged in the alleyway. And by the way, that's Mother. So Mother is Garnet. Garnet's gone with the Lord now, but he was the boss of the Outlaws in St. Catharines, the choice and then the Outlaws. So he had me in a headlock and dragged me into the alleyway. So I thought I was going in the trunk and in the water. And on the way in, he noogied me and went, "Hey, you little rascal," with a lot of my guys. Put me on the back of his motorcycle and brought me home. I have nothing bad to say about bikers. I won't say anything bad about they were my family, but by 19 I was a part of a wrecking crew. I mean, I robbed Johnny Papilia $40,000. I robbed everybody, eh? And so I'm a monster. I go to jail. I did 15 years in prison. During that time I was shot maybe 3 times. 1 time by cops, 2 times by guys. I escaped during that time and was out west and doing biker stuff. And I came back to jail, and and I finished my 15 years before I could be released the first time. I got out in '93. I'm an enforcer of the 2nd largest motorcycle gang in the world. We're warring with the largest motorcycle gang in the world. And so I'm outlaw and we're warring with the Hells Angels and rock machines in the mix, and it's just crazy. And we've got brothers killing each other that used to be with one club and now they... Anyway, it was just insane. But I'm getting released to that, to Arid House in St. Catharines, like 2 blocks from the clubhouse. I'm going to do well. Yeah. I was shot 5 weeks after being out. I got caught with my handgun. I'm back in prison. The problem is, I am now trying to kill myself, actively trying to kill myself. Even before I went back to prison, I was actively trying to kill myself. And when I mean actively, you have to read the book White Noise that I wrote sometime and read the front chapters. I was trying to kill myself every way you could try to. I was putting heroin and cocaine together and injecting it and going unconscious, and blood would come out of my ears and out of my nose, and my head would crack off the sink in the washroom, and I'd wake up on the ground and I'd shake like a guy with Tourette's, and I'd do it again and do it again and do it again. And I had ounces of heroin and coke and methamphetamine. I could not kill myself, and I was taking my gun and putting it under my ribs and trying to pull the trigger, putting it in my armpit. It's actually the fastest way to kill yourself, by blow your heart to the side, and then even putting it in my mouth, which to me is not, I don't like that, to pull the trigger to blow my head off, and it wouldn't pull. Finger white, right? Anyway, 18 police officers come in because they knew I had a gun. They were just kind of waiting until I laid down and they could get enough guys to get me, because I'm a real sneaky bastard and cause a lot of trouble with the police. Anyway, they get me, I'm back in jail. When I go back to jail, I got guys waiting for me. I don't have to commit suicide. They'll do it for me. No problem, right? And so, but the problem, I'm not telling you why I got to that point. I went to see my mom. I'm a mommy's boy. So one constant in my life is my mom. My dad's long gone. One constant in my life, my mom. And when I was out there, I called Billy Talbot. Billy was a Hell's Angel then, up in where my mom lived, Stouffville. And so I said, Billy, can I come in and see my mom? Yeah, no colors. Okay. And so I came in to see my mom. I went to her mansion in Stouffville and walked around and looked at all the pictures and everything. And then I found out afterwards that my mom ran to a motel room in fear when I came close to her. That's it. Gotta stay in prison and waste of skin. That's it. I'm killing myself. Anybody hurts my mom, I kill them. I'm hurting my mom, I kill me. That's it. Right? There's only one person. You know what my mom would do every time she visited me? Don't talk to me. I don't like what you do. Look at me. I love you. She'd separate the two, right? How do you hurt that woman, right? And so anyway, that's where I was. When I went back to Millhaven, I got shooed. 60 days special handling. That's this, right? Mask on, mesh for the eyes, chain between the two, bolted to the floor wherever I'm going, right? And so I moved that way before I go into pop. That's good. It's going to let me commit suicide this way, which is with my heroin, which is my favorite way. If I'm going to go, I want to go with heroin, right? And by the way, so I'm what's called old school junkie. So when I go to sleep at night, my heroin is wrapped up in condoms or saran wrap down the front of my underwear. And when I wake up, it goes inside my body. So that if the guards, if police get me, I've got my heroin. My heroin is inside my body at all times. It comes out at night when I sleep, because you can void in your sleep without knowing. But I carry my heroin. So when I'm in prison, I have enough heroin to kill myself. I have enough heroin to kill this room. And so I decided to take my life that way. So in that cell, in the prison cell, I shaved, I got cleaned up, I put clean underwear on. And how stupid that is. And so I'm standing there ready to commit suicide. I won't even get a catch in my throat. Right? I've got tar heroin, I've got an 8-ball right in front of me, I'm going to swallow it, little drink, lay down, go. Right? My dad's voice, like he was standing behind me, said, it was all us, ask God. And I laughed. I laughed because, I've done 15 years. I wouldn't have minded the company. How come I'm hearing voices now? You know what I mean? Like if there's ghosts or something, they'd definitely be where I was. My dad's voice, like he was standing behind me. There's only one man in the world that I would listen to. The guy I walked away from when I was 16. The guy who cried and I walked away from him. The only man's voice I listen to. I don't like men. If you come close in this, I fight you, right? And so the only, and it's my dad. It's my dad, right? What's God going to do with me? I'm arguing with a ghost. I have a grade 8 education. I'm a cutter. I'm a full-on gang member of the Warring Club. I have 15 years in. I have 10 more to go. I have a $30,000 open contract on me by Walter. Walter shot me out of the Skyway, right? Walter was the national boss at the time of the HAs. I am not surviving going to yard. What's God going to do with me? Every time I used to fight, I'd go to the hole. When I was in the Gideons in the room know the story now. Every time I thought I'd go to the hall. The first time I went to the hall in Kingston Penn, it's a little cell that's got a raised concrete platform and a hole in the floor. You get a toilet paper roll. That's your pillow. You're wearing baby dolls. No, nothing. Hole in the floor, raised concrete, toilet paper roll. 30 days, you do 20. Pure black, no light. The door's that thick from the bottom and light comes under the door. They slide in a little cup like this of water with 2 slices of bean loaf once a day for 20 days. Never so hungry, so cold. I go in one time and next to the toilet paper roll is a Gideon's Bible, New Testament, red one. Right? And so I go in, at that point, I'm a Satanist. I'm a Satan's choice. Like I've got Baphomet on my arm. Right? And I go in there and I grab it and I go, take this effing thing. And I threw it out and hit him in the head. Back then they carried batons in the 70s, with a ball bearing in the end of it. Usually that means up against the wall and you heal for 20 days. So, but he went in, they pushed me against the wall, he went in and came back out again and pushed me in. And just as he was closing the door, he said, now do you want the Bible? He had taken the roll of toilet paper. And I said, yes. And he threw the Bible in. And it's the first time I sat and read the New Testament as a story, right? I can relate to men with 12 guys with one boss, right? I can, and so I'd read it like that, as stories under the bottom of the door. What does that mean? So I am a Gideon today. Because when I was in that cell, and I'm going, what could God do with me? I had an example. The guy on the cross next to Jesus. I can claim that. And so that's what I claimed. I said, let me be the guy on the cross next to you. I love you. Let me die like a man in the yard. Let me go to heaven on grace. And I flushed my drugs down the toilet. That's the end of the bad part of my life. I still did 10 years in prison, but as a Christian God. Same violence, same prison, same everything. I miss it. I miss prison. That part of prison, right? Because I was, the footprints in the sand? I was carried through that. And that's kind of neat later in life to see. But so here I flushed my drugs down the toilet. What's going to happen to a guy like me? I flushed down my drugs down the toilet and went sick. About 3 weeks into going sick, I started feeling better. I started smelling better. So first thing, smelling better. The next thing was, I started looking beyond, what's that when you look beyond the next day? Hope. I didn't know at the time, but I was actually starting to think, I could probably, maybe I could, you know what I mean? Where before there was no, and so I did that. A lawyer, so I'm getting better, I'm in my cell. But I'm going to go to the yard and get killed. Like, it doesn't matter what I think I'm going to do. Maybe I could survive it, I don't know. It's 5 guys waiting for me. A guy from Queen's University runs Queen's Law, comes to see me. And so they bring me out like this, bolt me to the floor, and he sits with me, and he goes, how much time did you get for your gun? And I said, 2 years, it's okay. I hadn't used it. It wouldn't fire. And so he goes, you don't need my help then. And I go, no. And he goes, can I do anything for you? And I laughed. I'm in the shoe. You couldn't give me a stamp if your life depended on it. What do you mean? So I said, since you're being ridiculous, I'd like to go to drug treatment. Sault Ste. Marie. Sault Ste. Marie takes 5 of the best federal inmates, 5 a year. Sault Ste. Marie. I'm 5 of the worst in one guy. Right? There's only 2 of us in the shoe. And so we laughed. And he laughed. And went downstairs. And I found out later what happened. 3.5 hours with his best friend, the warden. He went downstairs and said, something's different about Ozzy. And the warden always, he went junk sick. He went cold turkey. We've been watching him. He's coming clean. And they together made phone calls, talked to doctors, post-traumatic stress disorder, all kinds of things. The warden sent me to Collins Bay on a thing called Warden's Autonomy, where you can send one guy 1 level up, 1 level down without the receiving institution saying anything, so you can break a click up. Sent me to Collins Bay that way. For 10 days, declared me medium and sent me to Sault Ste. Marie. Never been done before. Here I go to treatment. I'm in treatment. I have a little pregnant psychologist. I had to see her twice a week. And it was, I'm different than the other guys, so I'm getting more intensive stuff. And they gave me a little pregnant psychologist. I don't know what they gave me a little pregnant psychologist. But she got to know me. We built trust. And then one day she says to me, sun's coming through the window, my arm's there, I'm sitting in the chair, and I tattoo over my scars. But the thing is, if sun hits me, you can see this ketosis, you can see the scars, right? And so she said to me, "You're a cutter." And I says, "I'm not a cutter." And she says, "You're a cutter and you're a bullshitter." If that was a man, I would have punched him out of his shoes. It was a little pregnant woman. So she goes, so I just stand there. And she said, "Would you write one incident out for me and give it to me? I'll never ask you about it." And I just looked at her and she goes, "You trust me?" I go, "A little bit." She goes, "Would you do that for me?" I said, "I don't know." That was Thursday. On Tuesday, when I saw her, my first visit of the week, I slipped her a little folded in half. When my old lady, not a derogatory term, my girlfriend, Deidre, was shot through the neck and killed by a rival gang guy who wanted me, killed her instead. I cut. I thought that one you can understand, right? So I wrote that to her, and she folded it and put it in her pocket. And when we left, at the end of our session, she leaned into me and she goes, "Could I have another?" She healed me non-verbally. Not once did I talk about what happened to me. I wrote it. She went and had her baby. When she came back, she had 3 days before I went back to the pen, and she says, "We need to go one other place, you have to see me." So I sat with her and she says, I went, "What?" And she goes, who got you? Who raped you? And I said, "No man's ever got me." And she goes again, "Write it out for me." So I think I was 42, 43 years of age. I finally wrote Florida out. Nobody knew about Florida. And I wrote it up to her and handed it to her, and she said, "Thank you." Put it in her pocket. I never did drugs again, never cut again. That healed me. When I went back to Collins Bay, you know what the problem was? My friends. "Ozzy, good to see you." Respect. Paper. 1/10 of a gram of heroin. Comes in a little origami house. I don't know why junkies are so good at that. Right? Cost $50 in prison. Right? Push him down the strip. "Ozzy, respect." "No, I don't do drugs anymore. I'm clean." "Hey, oh yeah, we heard you're in treatment. You know, yeah, I'm good, right?" Go make my bed in 2 block. Guy comes up. "Hey, Ozzy, good to see you." Respect. A little something. "No, I don't do drugs anymore." Go sit at the biker table. "Hey, Ozzy, good to see you back. Here's a bit of money. Here's a bit of dope. Get you going again." "No, I'm good. I don't." Do you know what happened? 3 weeks. Every time I turn around, "Ozzy," you know, they got the tin foil up, they're smoking heroin. You know what I had to pay for it? Guys weren't offering it to me. It's because I'm pulling out of the network. I can bring packages in. I can pull together deals, right? So guys are trying to... So I'm walking down the strip in Collins Bay where the guards are there and towers, right? On the strip. And one of my buddies, the bodybuilding guy, walks by me and goes, "Hey, Ozzy," and palms me a paper. Right? You know what happened when that paper touched my hand? Right through my head went, "I can do this tonight in my cell and nobody'd know." And I dropped it on the ground, put my foot over it. He leaned down, pretended to tie his boot, picked up, went back to the range and told everybody else that because I'd done this in front of the guards, and he almost got busted. See how people turn things around, right? And so, you know what? And so he cleared out the back of the range and put the bag gloves on. He's going to punch me up for what I did. You know what? If you're going to do that, make sure you win, because it's embarrassing when you don't. And I stood in front of all my guys and said, "If you offer me drugs, knock you out." Just like that. You're not my friend anymore. So now all my friends distilled down to 4 people. Right? The guys that really liked me, and the rest was off to the side. We have guests come in prison. I'm part of the committee. I'm actually a chairman there. 10 of us represent all the guys, and every once in a while we have guests come in. Usually Queen's University, right? So we go down to the chapel one night. Queen's University comes in. 10 of us go down there. We go in. Here they come. 2 beautiful young women, second-year deviant sociology students, right? 9 guys get up and go, "Girls." And, you know, like, they don't know that's what they're writing about, by the way, but they don't know that. And then the most decrepit old man you've ever seen in your life, and I love this guy with all my heart, so forgive this, comes walking through the door. This book has a picture of him in there, but he's shaved in the book. But he had a beard this long that was orange. From nicotine, right? His hair was combed with a stick. He was 80 if he was a day, right? One arm didn't work, one leg didn't work. He's got a cane. He's got a pee stain happening. His vest is buttoned up wrong, right? Not a threat as a man, right? Just go over cane, you know. And so, you know, I don't go near men, right? But he's old. And so these guys are doing this, which I don't want to do. And so I go over to him and sit down next to him and I go, "My grandpa died in the Second World War. He's buried in France. Are you an old soldier?" And he goes, "Sniper, Belgian resistance." Right? We were there 2.5 hours. It was like 5 minutes, right? You know, like to listen to somebody who's lived through it, right? And we're ready to go. the women are going, he's going, they have to go first, and then we'll go. And he looks at me and he goes, Rick, you seem like a really smart guy. How come you don't have a university degree? And I looked at him and laughed. Because we're in prison, in case you didn't notice. And I have a grade 8. And I'm not very smart. Right? And so he looks at me and he goes, you're really smart. I'm going to help you get a GED. And together we're going to challenge Queen's University. And you're going to do a degree in my department. And when you graduate, I'm going to have your Queen's ring waiting for you. And he shows me his Queen's ring and walks out the door. And I think, that's the most senile guy I've ever met in my life. And the next day, I get called down to security. And there's Bill Leggett, the principal of Queen's University, Wilfred Vanderben, that old guy, head of the psych department, and Nelson Friedman, the head of the biological pharmacology department. And they're standing there and going, we want him. And so I had to sign, and they started, here's, do this book, read this, do this, do this. I did my GED. 3 years later, I became the 17th person in Canadian history to get a university degree from inside a penitentiary. The first time I used my psych degree was to talk to guards and to let me go graduate at Queen's. I wanted my dad to see me graduate at Queen's. That man, who meant everything to me, got to see me graduate at Queen's. He died after that. You know, he knows I'm going to be in heaven with him. He knew way back God told him that I was going to be in heaven with him. So to see this, never got to see me free, never got to see me in the real world, never got to see my wife, never got to see me have any kids. But he got to see me graduate at Queen's, right? When I first went to the penitentiary, the night that I got there, a guy called me a fish. And you know what? When I arrived at the penitentiary, I'm prepared to fight anybody for any reason, right? And calling me a fish will get you punched out, right? So I went over to him and I said, did you call me a fish? And the guy goes, whoa, you're all fish. And I go, what do you mean you're all fish? We call all you new guys fish. And I go, why is that? Anybody know Kingston Penitentiary? When you go in, it's a dome, eh? You walk into a dome, just like the Don Jail, you walk into a dome, right? Actually, back then, you walked in, there's 2 barber chairs set up. They shave your head. It's the first thing that happened, right? But you're all called fish. Haven't you seen you guys when you come into the dome? I had to go with their description, it was perfect, right? So here I am at Queen's University. I'm looking good, right? Compilation of the best set of clothes in that prison. Everybody's living vicariously through Aussie. He's going to go graduate at Queen's, right? And so they put me into Queen's. They just, I've still got 6 years to do in the pen, medium security, but the guards all put me into Queen's and just surrounded it. So I just got, Queen's, went, got in line, got my gown, little box there, went and sat, got my gown, went and sat with all the young, good-looking, rich Queen's kids. And all I could think of is that song from Sesame Street, one of these things is not like the other. Big tattoo. I was 230 pounds at the time, right? And, this is all cover up. The ones on my fingers have been taken off. I was full-on gang guy sitting there, right? And, although I was dressed nice. The girl next to me looked at my hands, pointed at my hands to the guy, and this guy leans forward. And even though these were all rich Queen's kids, here's the ring. $800 Queen's ring was in a box. By the way, that was 1996. Think this has ever come off this finger? When I went back to prison, they said, you can't bring jewelry into prison. And after a period of time, they weren't getting the humor of, what are you going to do, put me in jail? And eventually just said, if we can't, you know what I said to them? I had 6.5 years left to go, right? And I said, I'll do 6.5 years in solitary confinement. Thank you. And they went, you're not kidding, are you? And I go, no, you're not getting the ring. And so they went, well, if we can't get it, nobody else can. Enjoy it. And so when I graduated at Queen's, I came off this stage and hugged Wilfred Vanderben and kissed him on his scratchy old cheek and told him I loved him, which is huge, right? For me to do that is huge, right? And I meant it. And I look over, and there's a woman's face. And she's a teacher from Queen's University who has a heart for young men and started working in the prisons and as a teacher. And she pulled together this group of teachers called Excalibur, and she has 3 little boys from a previous marriage. And I think she'd stand up that she'd come to watch this convict graduate. And when I went back to prison and started my next degree, because Wilfred said to me, you know what, BA is a kindergarten of learning, let's start your next one, right? And so we started my next degree at McMaster, which I have. But And then I have professional certification to back my BS as far as addiction goes. So I kind of have that. But I went back to prison. I started my next degree, and the buzz all went through prison. Heather's quitting. And when I finally talked to her, she was quitting to go run the eating disorder clinic at South Lake Regional Hospital here in Newmarket, but she was going to go wait for me. And so I married her. I'm going to finish with this. I never had any kids. Right? And the reason I don't have any kids is because cops shoot me all the time. And the one bullet went through here and took my artery. Right? And when you have the artery gone, you don't have kids, which is beautiful. When guys, I didn't have a boy waiting for their dad to get out of prison, or a girl waiting for their dad, so I'm glad that happened, right? And so near the end of my sentence, Christian guy, getting ready to come out soon, I'm doing long pulley rows in the yard, working out with a guy, with a biker, and all of a sudden, bam, hernia. Can't even stand up. Incredible pain in my groin on this side. He helps me to the nurse's station. The nurse looks at me and goes, "Oh, I'll put you down for doctor's parade in the morning. They're going to have to take you to the, everything." I go to turn away, and she says, "Come back here, look at me for a minute." She pulls a thermometer out, puts it under my tongue, and then pulls it out and hits the emergency buttons. And by then, I'm out. And the guards actually got a tent post, handcuffed and shackled me, put the tent post and carried me like a pig on a spit, and ran me outside, broke every rule, ran me to a station wagon, piled in on me, and raced me to the hospital. I was bleeding to death. Hydrostatic damage. My artery further down had a valve that had blown out further down. So I was 104 point something when she pulled the thermometer out. And that you can't stay there very long. And so I raced to the hospital, and when I get in the hospital, they just come up and cut your clothes right off, right? So now you're naked. And then they put the chains, so my ankle and hand were to the bed. And I'm naked with a washcloth over my, being pushed down the hallway, right? I'm entirely tattooed. I have 480 tattoos, or one. It depends on you, right? And so I'm going, and the doctor comes, his name's Bakor, $5,000 suit, Rolex watch and everything, walks in, looks at me, says, "I'm not touching him without an HIV/AIDS test." And so I tell him, "No, ignorance is bliss. I have it, totally. I injected drugs for years. I fought every way you can fight. I've been shot, I've been stabbed. I definitely have somewhere in the spectrum." So I said, "No, nobody touches my blood. I'm old school. I'm under the oath. I've never been double bunked. I've never been in. They've never touched my body fluids. No." This guy walks over to me, points at my groin, and says, "I'm going to wear 4 pair of gloves if you don't give me a test." I'm clumsy with 4 pair of gloves. What kind of bedside manner is that? So anyway, I said to him, it worked. I said to him, "Okay, do it. You never see your surgeon when you have surgery. You see your anesthesiologist, right? He puts you under your surgery. The guy comes in and does your surgery. You don't even, if you wake up then, you don't see him because somebody else is sewing you up at the end, right? So I know you don't see this. You don't see the surgeon. So I'm laying there, blankets on me. They're getting ready to operate on me, right? I'm watching this guy. I know what he's going to do, right? Sometimes I like to squeeze my knee and feel the cold blood, as I go out. And the surgeon walks into my field of vision and goes, "Snap, 1 pair of gloves." Then I go out. No disease in my body. None. None. No hep C, no nothing. Right? So that's just incredible. He goes, "You're entirely disease-free. You have a specking." Like, that's impossible. Right? That's God's grace. Anyway, so this guy who felt that he needed to have an HIV/AIDS test before he touched me, God was working on it during that time. Because when I came out, he walked over to me, rubbed my shoulder, kept his hand there, and said, "I put a new artery in there. Have kids." Her name's Hannah Grace. She's 12 years old. So, as soon as I got close to my wife, baby, right? And that's it. Just that girl. So right now, I have a 25-year-old boy named Adrian Kunishish. Adrian Kunish's nickname is Ace. He was the gang boss in northern Quebec. Never had a dad, born in P for W. He's a +1. +1 to her FPS number, right? His mom's. That's my oldest boy. By the way, he had a boy named Jake last Tuesday, and he's a Christian. And he was written up. But that's what. Then I have a 22-year-old who I'm going to go meet now in Newmarket. And then I have a 20-year-old who's in East Maine, which is the top of Quebec, and he's gone native. So he's up there. And then I have a younger one who lives with me in Fonthill. And then I have Hannah. And then I have a 7-year-old boy named Levi, who was in my doghouse when he was 3.5. And so Levi's our little boy too. Although he's on the res right now getting cultural break, goose break, but we'll bring him back. And so everything I went through, he's gone through at 5. Raped and overdosed in the hospital at 5. Right? So anyway, when I brought him home to my home down here in Fonthill, he asked my wife if she'd like oral sex that night. 5 years old. So this is what this boy would be living in, right? And now he's just like, they heal quick. God heals them quick since you pulled them in. I've got some books here. If anybody wants a donation, or if you just want, you can keep them. I'll sign them for you. Everybody know who Ernie Hollins is? Hooked. When I went into Millhaven in 1978, I met Ernie. I'm one of his boys. I have little split bowl things that we do with Ernie. I didn't know about Christian, right? Ernie was a Christian, didn't mean anything to me at the time. Ernie was a nice guy. We would make those things, and we'd send them to a place in Kingston, and they'd sell them and put money into our account. And I got my TV that I had in prison from that. And when I went until the year that Ernie died, I got a Christmas package every year from Ernie. Every year. That's that. Just continue with, guys, even if, because, I wasn't a Christian, but I was in Ernie's heart, right? And, Ernie passed away. And last summer, Sheila got in touch with me and his wife and said, would you write for this book? And I've got a book out there, White Noise, and I had no time. I'm doing a stay-home ministry where up north we work with single moms. We take their kids while they go to treatment. Because where do their kids go? Right? Everybody's a drunk or a pedophile. So we take their kids down here. So I have no time to write. No time, right? But it's Ernie's wife, right? Of course I'll do it. It's Ernie's wife, right? And then I tried to write condensed White Noise, and I couldn't. I hit a block. So now I'm going to fail, right? I'm going to have to call her and go, I can't do it, right? And she wants me to be the base of this, the main one. And so I'm struggling with this. And a woman comes to me one day and says, well, you go see my son. He's in jail. Where is he? He's in Newburgh, Napanee, one of the jails there. And so I called. I have no connections there. It's not federal. I can't sneak into those places, right? And I could not get in. Didn't matter how hard I tried. And I'm going, okay, Lord, usually you get me in places. How come I can't get in here? And you know what? It was said to me, write what you would say. And that's what that is. If you invited me into the range in prison, and I sat at the end of the range, what would I say to you? And that's what I wrote. And so I've kind of got that. You can see some pictures in the back. I work with damaged youth, mostly men, boys. I call it Truth for Teens because the truth will set you free, right? But the teens goes all the way on that spectrum. Really, I work with angry young men with no fathers. The biggest problem we have is no men. Everybody here, remember you're an example of a man, and these boys do not have them. I remember standing at a Home Depot in Toronto a couple years ago on Keele Street. 2 young, handsome guys in their 20s in front of me, 2 beautiful girls in their 20s behind me, right? I did 25 years in prison. I can hear somebody whispering in that corner, right? So they're whispering about these 2 guys, how handsome they are, how maybe they could stop and say hi to them on the way out to the park. It was a Friday night at 5 o'clock, And then the one girl says, no, I'd rather have that old guy in front of us. And the other girl questions her, and she goes, at least I know he's a man. And I went, when women are making that assessment, everybody needs a good example of a man, right? And that's all. I just stood my ground and do what I do. And so I work in a lot of different eclectic things right now. We feed Saturdays in St. Catharines. So we have right across from the booths, the Salvation Army, we have a church there. We borrow from Central on Saturdays. And so Saturdays from noon till 4, we feed street level. We bring Harleys and everything there. I do Ozzy's Garage. I actually do it in communities and at my house where we bring guys and we work on cars. The same, it's jumping right brain, left brain. The same guy who can't talk to you, when you put a wrench in his hand, I'll sitting and talk to you. I do car shows and hot rod shows and Merrittville Speedway with street guys too. My wife works human trafficking. Just before Christmas, you might have heard on the news that Parliament Hill needed to beef up security. It was on the news. That was me. Sorry. Joy Smith, an MP from Manitoba, sent me a bunch of money and an order. Come to my office. So I drove to Ottawa in my Harley Hauler Dodge RT with a 400 horsepower engine. And she said, come around to the back of Parliament Hill and come in that way and they'll take you. So I drove through with the construction gate open. I went in the back. I met lots of nice, friendly RCMP officers. And they took my truck and put it away from me and took me to her office. So I get to her office. So not too pleased with me. But I get to her office and I don't know what she wants. And she says, sit down. She gets me a coffee. Well, somebody gets me a coffee. And she stands in front of me and goes, I am known for doing my homework. So I think, oh, I'm in trouble. I've done something wrong. And she's just laying down track. And she says, I want to give you a Heroes Award. So in October, I'm going up to Manitoba to get a Heroes Award from an MP. Doesn't God have a sense of humor? Right? And she's been watching. So me and Sheldon Kennedy are going to get one out there. And you know what? Just for standing up in front of men and saying we've been raped. You know what? When I talked to that psychologist and I said, how did you know I was raped? And she says, cutting in men and sexual and rape, 100% correlation. She goes, anecdotal, I can't prove it empirically. 100% correlation. When she said that, I started thinking about the 65 to 70% of us that are cutting in prison. And started to realize, oh, we've all been raped. You know, at one time I was speaking in school, Central Tech, the compound, bottom of Toronto, 1,000 kids. First question, hey, when you're in prison, you ever drop the soap? Huge disrespect. Prison, TV, guys getting raped in the showers. It came from 3 black kids halfway up on this side. I got off the platform. I got a wireless on. I was 220 at the time. Black t-shirt, jeans. I got off and walked right up to him. It was hilarious. Well, eyes went big. Not supposed to happen. When I got close to him, the guys on either side made sure I knew who it was, you know, bailed on him. When I put my forehead on his, I said, do you think you could make me drop the soap? Because he did that. And he goes, no. The wireless got it. Everybody laughed. I went down to the front. I said, perfect question. Perfect question. Guys don't get raped in prison. It's a myth. There's no Bubba waiting for you. You do not whistle at boys when they come in. Most of us have been raped. I did 25 years in prison with 35 moves across Canada during that time because I was full on gang and moved me all the time. I saw one rape and jump out that was quickly followed by one stabbing. Most of us have been raped. So that's the common denominator, this street, right? So just be man. On that note, I'll hang around. Thank you for listening. I'm long-winded.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing. I'm sure you've just been amazed at the power of God in a person's life and how he can, it doesn't matter how far gone we are and how hopeless our situation seems to be, that God can just reach right down with his big arm, his big Father's arm, and rescue us. If you ever had any doubts that God was real and that he could touch a human life and rescue us, I think hopefully this presentation by Rick today and his testimony will shatter that lie.
You know, I want to say something here. If anybody has a family member that's caught up in addiction or anything, I cannot remember heroin. I was a heroin addict for 18 years. Do you know what? In prison, you know, I was a Christian in prison for 6.5 years. right? 7 years. Never met another one. My enemies, who I had to survive a few years, I had to fight, I had to do everything I had to do normally. I remember apologizing to guys. Sorry, I didn't read the turn the other cheek thing yet. I'll read that next week. Because I had to kind of survive that thing. I would, eventually guys would walk the yard with me and go, how? How are you not a heroin addict? I'll prove God just on that one alone. I was a heroin addict for 18 years. I can't even remember heroin. So he not only can, and if you read this story ends with how important the 12 steps were. Do you want me to read the ending of it? Sure. Okay. I don't have my glasses and I'm old. But here's how I ended my story. Because I don't want to step on other people's toes. Remember, these are going into prisons, right? The 12-step programs, the Brentwood, AA, and NA were a big part of my recovery. Having said that, I know that my recovery and freedom from addiction, my emotional healing, wouldn't have happened without a 13th step. That 13th step, a personal relationship with Jesus, is the spiritual transformation that continues to shape my life as I learn to surrender to His will and His timing. That's how it works. Amen. It's the 13th step, right? This is going into prisons. Ukraine, everywhere. There are millions of these going into prisons, right? And so that's that. 12 steps are nice. There's a 13th step. Because when I go stand in front of, and they invite me to speak at AANA, you have to self-label, right? Yeah. My name's Bob, I'm an alcoholic or something. I get up, I go, my name's Ozzy, and I do my talk. And at the end, I always get asked, how come you don't self-label? Yeah, because I don't have to. It's gone. Right? So just on that note, it can be gone. Not your whole life on methadone, not your whole life in treatment. Gone.
I know that Rick would love, and a number of us would love to chat with you. Anybody wants to discuss further the place that Jesus can have in your own life, please come speak to us afterwards. We would love to share with you and pray with you. You may be in a place right now where you've been feeling hopeless about various things in your life, or discouraged, sensing a lack of purpose even for the future. Jesus can be that purpose in your life. And so I would just really encourage you to think very much about what Rick has said, and to be inspired by his own testimony that there is a way for you to move forward in your life, and that person is Jesus. So I just encourage you to pick up Rick's book. If you haven't got any funds available, I'm sure, as he said, he'd just love to give it to you. But if you can make a contribution, this will help his ministry. We have an offering plate outside there, and perhaps you would just like, if you feel inspired, you'd like to contribute to Rick's ministry, you have an opportunity to do that. But he has a tremendous ministry, a very necessary ministry, and I'm sure that you can see from his background, he can reach and touch people that you or I could never begin to reach, simply because of his background and his the incredible testimony that he has. So again, I just want to thank you all for coming out this morning. We will be contacting you beginning September with our men's breakfast then. Feel free to stick around, have another cup of coffee, talk to Rick, people that you are at the table with. Again, thank you so much. Let's just close with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this morning and for just this powerful testimony that we've heard of how loving you are, and that no matter how lost or far from hope we seem to be in our lives, that you could just reach down as our loving Heavenly Father, and you can rescue us. You can pull us up. You can give us hope. You can give us a future. And we thank you so much for that this hope is through your Son, the Lord Jesus Christ, who came and died on that cross. And as Rick said, we are like that thief on the cross beside him, that we don't deserve your grace, but yet you gave it to us. And you provide a way for life. And for our Father, we just pray that you would bless each person here today, and that you would just touch our lives with what we've heard today, and that we might find our hope in you. And so bless us now, and give us a safe trip back to our homes, and bless Rick, and bless his ministry as he continues to share his testimony to many, many people, and for these young guys that he's working with, many of them fatherless, and angry, that you would just touch them and give them a new hope for their life. Thank you, Father. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you all. And once again, let's just thank Rick for being here today.
Well, you know what? That's the only position I could hold. I wasn't going to do anything. I mean, neat example of what God can do with nothing, though. Yeah. Nothing. Like the worst of, of nothing. And the thing is he uses, like when I got out of prison, right? I'm entirely tattooed. I hate that I'm entirely tattooed. That was to make men fear me, right? And here I'm coming out, but when I go talk to kids, how they know I'm real, right? So, and anybody who knows me, and Jack can attest to this, they disappear, eh? You forget. People go,
Inside's clean.
Yeah, inside's clean. You need to know, if I stood up front there too, and I could probably get a long sheet like this and name all of the men that made a difference in my life from that point on, including Gary James, do you know what I mean? And like just all the guys, Gary Brooks, your wife, all the people that, that were involved in my life. Like it's a huge group of people. There was a pastor who came to the pen. I'm sure pastors don't want to go to the pen. Not bullshit, right? But I have guys who go. Some guys have heard my talk a few times, but they're supporters of mine. You know what? By 19 years of age, I was declared, I had a Canada-wide warrant on. In Canada, a Canada-wide warrant is the most dangerous status. Right? How did that happen? How did a church kid, by 19 years of age, become one of Canada's most wanted men? And when I say that, at 21 years of age, I went to the penitentiary. I was sentenced to 31 years for robbery times 3, weapons times 4, assault, police escape, custody, and possession of narcotics under gangsterism. It's not the nicest guy around. And one of the last guys to go, the old Don Jail, Kingston Penitentiary, and go below in the 70s. Me and Tony Special and Anthony Genovese were the last 3 to go that way, And so like that, when you do that at 21, you're gone. You're gone. That's not survivable. Average life expectancy for full-on gang member, and that was a full patch, is 11 to 12 years. Right? You kill yourself, somebody kills you for it. But so here's my story, because God's grace obviously was involved in this. I'm standing here in front of you, and that's it. Is God real? I'm standing here in front of you. Right? When you hear my story, I'll stand with that one, right? So grew up as a good kid, Christian home. But the reason I do this, that doesn't mean anything to anybody. If somebody says to me, I grew up in a Christian home, okay, what was it like? Right? Because that's not a definition. Right? In other words, my mother was an adult child of an alcoholic. She hadn't healed. My dad had to work all the time. He was never home. You grow up how you grow up, right? I'm the second oldest boy, so I wasn't getting a lot of attention. In grade 5 and 6 in St. Catharines, I started getting bullied. And really it was, as boys started exerting themselves as boys, I had 2 little sisters. My job was to protect my sisters. When boys started, like grade 5 and 6, boys started touching girls inappropriately. I commented on it, I got beat up for it, right? And then I got beat up grades 7, grade 8. So Prince Philip in Niagara Falls, that middle school, I knew every...
Well, we are delighted this morning to have Rick Osborne. I think I first met Rick. He might not remember this, but I think it was about 3 years ago. He was speaking at Valley View Alliance on one of the occasions when he came to speak there. He's very much supported by the Valley View Alliance group of people. And I heard him share his testimony, and I was very much impacted by it at the time. And God has just done a tremendous work of grace in his life over the years. And I'm not going to steal his thunder at all this morning. But I asked him, I said to him this morning, so what is your main ministry? And he kind of looked at me with a puzzled expression. He gave me a card that said Truth for Teens. So I said, this is the main thing that you're working with? He said, well, not really. And he said, so I said, so it's a variety of things. He said, yes. And because of what God has done in his life over the years, he finds that, as I'm sure you're going to hear, that God is using him in a variety of ways to bless people in various walks of life. So without further ado, I just want to welcome Rick. Come and share your heart with us, Rick. It's so good to have you. Thank you for being here.
Little corner where you could get through a fence. I knew how to, these boys were one size bigger, 1 year older. I'll be 60 this year. I cannot tell you my friends' names back then. I can tell you their first and last names of the police and go show you their houses. Right? The point is, I didn't have any friends. Bullying and going quiet, so I thought if you cried, if your dad found out you cried, you weren't a man. And so I'd ride my bike around and wait until my tears were gone and go home. Bad place to sit. And so anyway, I started high school from a bad spot. Low self-esteem. My ears were too big, my nose was too big, my hair was too short, my clothes were uncool. You know what I mean? I'm starting high school like that. But the bullies are going to Stanford Green, not A.N. Meyer. So it'll work, right? I'm about 165, 170 pounds, getting bigger. I'll get on the wrestling team, I'll get on the football team. As I'm walking to school, the first day of school, I saw the coolest guy I've ever seen in my life. Davy Jones from the Monkees. If I say that, the kids have no idea, but long hair, Fu Manchu mustache, a very handsome guy, 21 years old, bell-bottoms, platform shoes, paisley shirt with an AWU collar with gold buttons. I totally remember what he was wearing, and it was just the epitome of cool. And I was visual. Young men are visual. That's why porn is such a problem. We're all visual, but him I just looked at visually. And so I walked up to him. He was working on a sports car. I walked past him and I said, cool car. And he goes, you like cars? And I said, I love cars. And Billy, after his actual first name, I couldn't wait to see him on the way to school, on the way home, tell him about my day. He was my friend. I just wanted to be him, right? First week of October, the week before I turned 15, I'm walking home from school. Billy's got his sports car running at the side of the road. Top down, beautiful day, 3:30 in the afternoon. And he says, Rick, do you want to go for a ride? He would have had to shoot me. Do you know what I mean? I'm a 14-year-old boy, right? And it's a convertible. He's the guy if somebody would have told me that Billy was a junkie, I would have thought he collected junk. I had no idea, right? Just totally. If I would have tried to buy a bag of weed, I would have got a bag of oregano. Right? I was that fresh. I thought if I went for a ride with him,